Good afternoon.
Absolutely.
It seems like it was just a few hours ago we were talking on the phone.
That it was.
Talking about AI and all the wonderful innovations that you're making with your great company. So for all the good people in the room, would you like to, open up and tell them a little bit about your company and what you do?
Yeah, other than having the coolest name of any startup in the world, we effectively are the generative AI orchestration engine. So that's a marketing term to just mean we're the software you install to make AI operational in an enterprise. It works across the edge, the retail locations, all the way down from the warehouses to the stores to the data center to even cloud. Having that same software allows you to then, somebody asked earlier, distribute the data load. So wherever the data is, you bring AI to the data, and that's where sort of the big breakthrough has been. And that's why we've had such an uptick, especially in the retail sector and many others.
We definitely enjoy that. I think earlier we were just talking about innovations and ideas and creators in this room. Happy to have you as one of the creators that's going to change the landscape. So with that said, I think, let's talk about it. Let's get into it. Retail specifically has always been driven by efficiency and customer experience. I think, it's been said here a couple different times that speed and personalization. How do you see AI, specifically in this time frame today, changing the retail landscape over the next 3 to 5 years?
3 to 5 years is a lifetime, especially with AI. Like 3 to 5 weeks is a lifetime. We're already seeing at the global, we're talking the global 2000, Fortune 500 level, just a massive sweeping change in the retail sector driven by AI. Most importantly, we're seeing the smallest companies now have the same resource level and the same ability to deliver at-point solutions and back-office solutions and logistical solutions of the largest companies. And it's built and driven for the fact that now AI has really democratized a lot of the technical capability to write software, to do integrations, to keep up with all that data. That used to take somebody that could actually interface with a FedEx level scale and have FedEx level employees that understand logistics and supply chains. Now AI agents can process that data, manage that data, and move it forward. And it's absolutely amazing to see these shops in New York with like 5 or 6 guys have the same technical capabilities as like a Walmart. It really is sort of blowing the doors off of what can happen. And that's today. I couldn't even imagine 3 to 5 years from now.
So yeah, it is a lifetime because you've already seen in the most innovative way a company like DeepSeek, right? Is how is that democratizing AI? Because I see it as a moment where the world found out that hey, everybody can have it, right? How do you see DeepSeek's innovation so quickly in this landscape of innovation that's happening?
I think DeepSeek hit the zeitgeist in a unique way that a lot of people in this room probably don't even quite grab. DeepSeek is an app ran by a commodity trading company out of China. It is also an open source model that's been fully open source on an OpenGL and an Apache license, which means now the weights, the actual use of that model can be applied anywhere, any way you want. So now you're able to take this incredibly powerful model that equaled ChatGPT 4.0's capabilities and now deploy it at the edge, deploy it on your own hardware, utilize it in your own way, in a very secure way, do it in a data center, do it in the cloud. That, I think, finally caught on that there is this huge open source ecosystem. There's this huge capability to customize that open source ecosystem and run it in your own environment. And that's really where people are now starting to understand that this isn't just a SaaS service. This is now the ability to really deliver AI where it needs to be. And that's where I think the zeitgeist really sort of caught on to it, and that's that moment. And they did it, at one, whether you believe them or not, even if you don't believe them, they did it at a scale far, far less than the previous iteration on the GPT scale.
We personally don't believe them, but I mean,
No, neither do I.
No, literally, we have the receipts. They're talking about pieces of it, but for what it's worth, that price point, right? I think like the efficiency level and price point level of being able to democratize it for everyone what's your thoughts on that? Like, I mean, even though if you don't believe it or you do believe it, the thought of it drove the market for at least a couple days.
So, once again, whether you believe or not is really on the training side, and the fact that they did what's called the ability to take a standard model. Because, by the way, DeepSeek V1 was released 20 months ago, and then V2 came out about 9 months ago, and then about 3.5 months ago, 3.5 came out, and then they updated 3.5 with DeepSeek R, which is their reasoning version. And that introduced inference time scaling. So the ability that as soon as you ping a model, it actually gets recursive and starts thinking, actually puts reasoning into it, and scales and scales and scales until it gets an answer. That long explanation is really just to throw out this, which is the exact opposite. I just was reading this. ChatGPT 4.5 came out. Their inference time scaling just came out today. It is 2,500% more expensive than ChatGPT 4. Just came out today. That's probably why NVIDIA stock is having a little problem. At the same time, the ability to take a model like DeepSeek, like Quen's another one that just came out about a week ago, and they have a new reasoning model called Question on Question, and run that on hardware, now means it's not a per token cost like I mentioned before. It's actually a sunk cost or a least cost that now you can just maximize every little bit of processing out of that GPU, and that now pushes the cost structure into something a business can actually manage. And then they can start to maximize, and they can start to show that ROI to an exact result. And that was the big game changer in all of this.
Got it. So we're gonna pull it back. I mean, that was, fabulous for us geeks in the room. But most of us are trying to run a business, so, I mean, I love it, Luke. Let's focus this back on retail, and it was my fault because I did the question, right? I was just interested to hear what you had to say about it.
Great question.
Thanks.
So,
Great here, by the way.
Essentially, retailers, let's bring it back home, they've been experimenting with AI, and the segment in general is still transforming. It's in flux, right? It's changing. There's some fear, right, uncertainty and doubt with it, and future-proofing as we've been hearing. So for those experimenting with AI and they're achieving, they want that real scale, what are the barriers that you have seen in your company with accomplishing, full AI adoption?
So our customers are typically hung up in what I call the doom loop of a proof of concept. They come up with an idea, they use a service like GPT, et cetera, and they can prove it out to the point where, yeah, this would make sense. But the problem is that data is typically spread all throughout, literally the retail stores, the warehouses, the SAP systems. And once they realize that that data is so spread out and they can't move it to a central location, or they can't get that SaaS service, that GPT service to actually access all that data, it breaks down almost from there. Sort of proof of concept to reality is broken down. Once again, to plug us, what we've done in partnership with you, Supermicro and NVIDIA, is to figure out how do we bring AI to all of those different data sources and then tie the AI together so it can ask the question of the other AIs at the other locations, what data do you have, how can I access that, how can I process that? That is a big step, may I add, from going from, I'm playing with something in the cloud to I want to implement that. But the ROIs on this are exponential. And typically the first use case pays for the whole thing. The second use case gets somebody promoted, and the third use case is just, your stock price going up.
Right on. So let's talk about some of the use cases. Just some that you've seen with tangible ROI, so it makes it real for everybody in the room. What are a couple that, you've seen right away with going to this full adoption model of AI?
Yeah, one of my friends was supposed to be here, and he's actually a great customer. Jeff from Campbell's, he'll be at the next one, actually. I wasn't able to attend this one. One of their great use cases that he was going to talk about, and I'll drop this little anecdote here, and you guys can hear much more at the next one. He gets feeds over at Campbell's from Kroger's, from Amazon, from all of the major retailers, and they come in all the different file formats, and they come in all the different services, and they're just fed to them. And now with generative AI, they can take that data, they can manage it on the fly. If there's an apostrophe in a name that actually would break the file format, AI now understands reasons and just changes that on the fly. Then all the data gets in a single file format. Once the data's in a single file format, now they can do predictive analytics on that. Is that data different than the last data feed? Is it new compared to the last data feed? Is there more being sold? Is there less being sold? Supply chain can then kick in reverse, in real time, and actually say in this particular region where we ran that particular marketing campaign, we need to now supply that with more of our particular product. Literally, it just goes on and on and on, because now you have thousands of PhD candidate students that are looking at that data, reporting it in real time, and the use cases, the ROI is in the tens and tens of millions of dollars overnight.
That's fantastic. Any other ones that jump off the page?
We've seen pretty awesome front-end use cases where you're, one that I've personally been able to work with, and just I recommend all of you guys, if you haven't been to a Uniqlo store, there's one literally around the corner. You mentioned it during the keynote. They're watching your eyes literally as you're walking through. They will in real time even text you on your phone if you're standing in front of something, a literal discount in front of that. You walk up to the cash register with all of your clothes and it literally just adds it right in there. It is mixing, and this is where the real value, especially in retail, is coming. They're mixing standard machine learning, standard what's called regressive AI with now generative AI. And when you have those two things working in concert, you have these amazing customer outcomes on the front side, and you can have amazing supply chain and back office outcomes on the other side. When you mix those two things together, it is a completely different experience.
What store is that?
Uniqlo. Actually, the sweater is.
Bought with AI.
So let's tap in. I heard supply chain on this. So there's a lot around supply chain, physical AI, optimizations and efficiencies there. Retailers are under pressure, right, to be more efficient. How is AI helping that with the supply chain being more accurate?
So I think it's helping in costs on a couple of ways that I'll just riff quickly. The static SAP big monolithic app that would manage supply chain is being eaten alive by generative AI. Generative AI can cut so many parts of that up and build own unique little applications and services for each unified enterprise. That's exactly what they want. That alone is typically anywhere between the second to the third largest expense in these enterprises, just managing these monolithic systems and legacy systems, and the consulting services to manage and monitor those now gets pushed to AI. Secondarily, like I was saying, we're seeing these incredibly small companies and incredibly large companies now, the Campbell Soup example, et cetera, adopting generative AI, and their level of flexibility when it comes to supply chain is mind-boggling. We're talking the true ability to understand not just the actual real-time sales and adopting their supply chain, but we're seeing, especially with some unique business that we're trying to do together on Supermicro, the ability to manage each warehouse in each manufacturing site and adjusting those with the forward prediction of the supply chain and working that back and working that forward in real time, and adjusting to supply chain when it comes to like ingredients and services and materials price change on the, all of this isn't the world of an Excel spreadsheet anymore. It's the world of an AI system that can interface with all of those and make the change. It's mind-boggling. And the cost is almost nothing compared to the actual decline in overall cost of goods, et cetera.
So you mentioned cost and the efficiencies there is phenomenal, right? ROI, phenomenal. Everything great. But what about jobs, right? This is the $100,000 question, an elephant in the room. How is AI, is it this idea of replacing jobs, optimizing jobs, or the human workforce? Where does it play a role, especially in this example with Campbell Soup? It used to be all manual, right?
Yeah, I guess I'm an over-optimist, don't get me wrong, but so just another use case that sort of came to mind on this. I'm seeing, especially in the retail sector, there's a lot of the work that's still done literally on paper, and it's literally annotated and it's scanned. Everything from showing a receipt that actually was the amount that was delivered versus what they sold. Maybe they would scan that in and send that for a rebate for a larger company that can't forecast that rebate. there's a lot of people that just look at all of these receipts, look at all of these digital images, and now all of that is moved into the realm of actual AI, because now it can be digitally understood and processed. And that's a lot of people's just manual work. All that Excel input we talked about, manual work, the SAP input, manual work. So, you know, in the short term, I do truly see this as I believe it's called the K approach. You have the bottom side of the K, and that's about 80% of digital input, digital processing, and that is now going to be completely in the next, as you said, 3 years or so, replaced by AI. Then there's the top part of the K, that 20% that's really hard. That's the worker, knowledge worker, the knowledge work to be done by the knowledge worker. That knowledge work to be done is going to be massively accelerated, and now that knowledge worker is going to get 2x, 3x, 5x better. So you are going to see a good part of the K get much better. You're going to see the bottom part of the K, you know, completely sort of go the way of AI. And where that goes in the short term, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a conundrum for sure for a lot of retailers to consider because we have the innovation of robots, right, in this whole cycle. So I got you. All right. So this was great, man. The time kind of goes by when you're having fun, right? So this is great. So in that point, with that point, data and it being trained, you're only as good as the data you're training, right? So how should retailers think about their data strategies to take advantage of it? Because there's this data curation part, unlocking data that can't be accessed to be trained, right? There's still a bunch of on-premises type of data that needs to be released to be freed. So talk to me a little bit about data curation, data training, and the data, privacy of that data.
So, I mean, as quick as I can, there's training data and then there's inference data. And inference data is retrieval augmented generation or DAG. There's many acronyms. And that's the data you feed into your model in real time to get an answer or get a result. And then there's the pre-trained data you use to build the models. I don't think anybody, and I know Walmart tried this, should be trying to build models in retail. Walmart tried it and realized it wasn't their game. They moved out of pre-training, and everyone's focused on that RAG, that real-time data that you ingest in and out of the model to actually do it. And as you said, most of that data is at the edge. Most of that data is in the legacy data centers, and some of that data is sitting in the cloud. And the idea is if you have an agent, if you have a process, it has to actually have 95, 98% of the data to actually make a result. If it only has 10 or 20% of the data because it's stuck in one location and not all the data's there, it can't actually do anything. So this is the real DeepSeek moment and the open moment for open source AI. How do you move the compute to where all of that data is so now you can actually get an AI response across it? And the reality is most people are finding out that that data, once again, is at the edge and it's at the data center. And what makes this now finally unlocked this year is the ability to run those models, open models, on hardware, put that hardware next to the data, connect it to the data, and then allow an agent to process it. And that's where the real, aha moment in the last 6 to 9 months in the enterprise, especially in the retail sectors, really come from.
Yeah, so it makes me think about, hardware. Why would I be thinking this way? So, in a Fireside Chat sponsored by Supermicro. So, Kamiwaza, well known in the industry for multi-vendor, multi-solution AI architecture, all right? How does that approach help retail enterprises to deploy all of these concepts that we've just spoken to more effectively?
Yeah, so it's not just simply deploying hardware, and this isn't just a plug for NVIDIA, but as you saw from the earlier presentation from Supermicro, when you do deploy these, you have to right-size the open model you want to put on the right hardware at the right envelope from a heat perspective and a power perspective. NVIDIA has an incredibly large line when it comes to finding the right card on the accelerator side that can actually process this, and of course, Supermicro is the right solution to put those vast array of cards in. So they have cards that are called like L40Ss. These cards are desktop size. They can go into desktop level servers that can be installed in the back of a data center. And just think of this. Real quick, ChatGPT is the worst thing that ever happened to AI. The idea that you have to just chat by typing back and forth with a superhuman, God in the sky type computer is the wrong thing. The other reason I bring that up is now you can run these models on a lower powered machine, say at an edge location or a warehouse, And it doesn't have to interact in real time. It just has to be there to reason, get inputs. If it takes 5 or 10 minutes for it to understand it and spit it back out into a larger system, that's fine. So there's multiple levels. How do you get the right power? How do you get the right system to run into that power to have the right use case for that right location or capability? And that's what we really focus on, is to be agnostic when it comes to the underlying hardware that runs, so we can match up with the hardware that can run there with the actual solution you're trying to achieve. And that means you can do it, once again, from a warehouse in Connecticut that has almost no power or no bandwidth sent to it, to a retail shop at Kamiwaza right around the corner.
Man, you make it sound so easy. Right? I mean, who's ready to deploy with Kamiwaza right now? Right? Let's get to it. Luke, this has been fabulous. Have you guys enjoyed the conversation? We're gonna wrap up, and you know what? Let's continue this conversation, through the panel and through dinner. It's been great. Kamiwaza, one of the innovators. Luke, you definitely are. Thank you for everything that you've done for the company.
Yeah, thanks, man, and nice shoes.
All right.
I gotta get some white shoes, honey. I gotta.
All right, back to Bill.